The scorching July sun hung mercilessly in the cloudless Iowa sky, turning Riverside Park into a sweltering outdoor oven. Despite the oppressive heat, over 300 residents of Cedar Rapids had gathered for the city's annual Police Community Day, an event designed to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the citizens they served. Colorful tents dotted the sprawling green space, each one representing a different aspect of police work, from forensics to traffic safety, from emergency response to community outreach. But there was one tent that commanded more attention, more caution, and more whispered conversations than all the others combined. At the far eastern edge of the park, cordoned off by yellow caution tape and orange safety cones, stood the K-9 demonstration area. And at the center of that area stood Officer, a 15-year veteran of the Cedar Rapids Police Department, alongside his partner, a creature that seemed more wolf than dog. Rex was an 85-pound German Shepherd whose very presence commanded respect, and if she was being honest, a healthy dose of fear. His coat was a stunning mixture of black and tan, sleek and powerful, rippling over muscles that had been honed through years of intensive training and real-world police work. His dark, intelligent eyes constantly scanned the crowd with an intensity that made grown men shift uncomfortably, and mothers instinctively pull their children closer. This wasn't Rex's first rodeo. The 4-year-old K-9 officer had an impressive resume that read like an action movie script. He tracked down suspects through dense forests in the dead of night, located missing children who'd wandered from their homes, discovered hidden narcotics in vehicles during routine traffic stops, and on 3 separate occasions had taken down armed criminals who posed immediate threats to human life. Rex had never failed a mission. He had never backed down from a challenge. And he had certainly never broken his ironclad professional discipline. Officer stood beside his partner with one hand firmly gripping the reinforced leather leash, his other hand resting on his duty belt. He'd given this demonstration dozens of times, but he never let his guard down, not even for a second. A police dog wasn't a pet. Rex wasn't some golden retriever who would happily lick the face of anyone who approached. He was a highly trained law enforcement tool, and like any tool, he needed to be handled with expertise and respect. As you can see, Officer's voice boomed across the demonstration area, amplified by the portable microphone clipped to his uniform. K-9 officers like Rex undergo thousands of hours of specialized training. They learn to track scents, apprehend suspects, search vehicles and buildings, and most importantly, they learn to follow commands without hesitation. The crowd watched with rapt attention, keeping a respectful distance behind the safety barriers. Parents held their children's hands tightly, some lifting smaller kids onto their shoulders for a better view while ensuring they remained safely far away. A few brave teenagers leaned against the caution tape, trying to appear unimpressed, but even they maintained their distance from the imposing K-9. Rex sat at attention beside his handler, his posture perfect, his gaze unwavering. Every muscle in his body spoke of coiled power ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. His ears stood erect, rotating slightly to catch every sound in the environment. His breathing was steady and controlled. This was a dog who lived for his work, who thrived on discipline and purpose. Officer continued his presentation, explaining the rigorous selection process for K-9 candidates, the specialized breeding programs that produce dogs with the right combination of drive, intelligence, and courage. He described the daily training regimen that kept Rex's skills sharp, the partnership and trust that developed between handler and dog over years of working together in dangerous situations. Rex here can detect over a dozen different types of narcotics, explained, his voice filled with obvious pride. He can track a human scent across miles of terrain, even days after the person has passed through an area, and if needed, he can neutralize a threat faster than any human officer could react. As if to punctuate his handler's words, Rex shifted his weight slightly, his powerful shoulders bunching beneath his coat. A small child in the front row gasped and stepped backward into his father's legs. The father chuckled nervously and placed reassuring hands on his son's shoulders. The demonstration area hummed with a mixture of fascination and healthy apprehension. This was exactly the reaction Officer wanted: respect for K-9 officers, understanding of their capabilities, appreciation for the dangerous work they performed to keep the community safe, but also, crucially, an awareness that these weren't animals to be approached casually or treated like household pets. The temperature continued to climb as the late morning sun beat down relentlessly on the park. Officer paused to take a drink from his water bottle, then poured some water into a collapsible bowl for Rex. Even in the heat, the dog maintained his professional demeanor, drinking efficiently before returning to his alert sitting position. In the crowd, approximately 40 yards away from the K-9 demonstration area, stood Sophia with her 2 children. She'd brought her 3-year-old daughter Emma and 6-month-old son to the event, hopping to show Emma the friendly side of the police officers who patrolled their neighborhood. Sophia believed in teaching her children early that police were helpers, protectors, friends to the community. Little Emma was an energetic ball of sunshine, with dark curly hair pulled into 2 pigtails that bounced when she moved. She wore a bright yellow sundress covered in white daisies, and her favorite light-up sneakers that flashed with every step. Emma had her mother's warm brown eyes and her father's adventurous spirit, a combination that often kept Sophia on her toes. They'd already visited several tents that morning. Emma had tried on a police helmet that swallowed her tiny head, sat in the driver's seat of a patrol car and pretended to drive, and received a plastic junior police badge that she'd immediately pinned to her dress with immense pride. She'd giggled at the police officers who joked with her, high-fived several of them, and declared loudly that she wanted to be a police girl when she grew up. But now, as they moved through the park toward the refreshment area where Sophia hoped to get Emma some cold lemonade, the little girl's attention was captured by something far more interesting than plastic badges or patrol cars. Her eyes locked onto the K-9 demonstration area, specifically onto the magnificent German Shepherd sitting beside the officer. "Doggy," Emma exclaimed, her voice filled with the pure, unfiltered excitement that only a 3-year-old could muster. She'd been asking her parents for a dog for months, and here was the most beautiful dog she'd ever seen in her entire life. Sophia, who'd been adjusting her baby sons and hadn't been paying close attention to where Emma was looking, responded absently, "Yes, sweetie, that's a police dog. We can look from here." But Emma, with the fearless determination of a toddler who decided what she wanted, had already pulled her small hand free from her mother's distracted grip. Before Sophia could react, before she could process what was happening, Emma took off running. Her light-up sneakers flashed pink and purple as her little legs pumped as fast as they could carry her. She ducked under the caution tape as if it wasn't even there. She weaved between 2 startled teenagers who'd been leaning against the barrier. She was a tiny, yellow blur moving with single-minded purpose across the grass toward the massive police dog. "Emma, no!" Sophia's scream cut through the air like a knife. Officer's head snapped up. His body went rigid. His hand tightened on Rex's leash with white-knuckled intensity. Every training instinct he'd developed over 15 years kicked into overdrive. The crowd gasped in collective horror. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. A woman near the front covered her mouth with both hands. A man shouted, "Someone stop her!" Parents instinctively pulled their own children away from the barrier, as if the danger might somehow spread to them. Emma ran on, oblivious to the panic she was causing, her innocent face split by the widest, most joyful smile imaginable. All she could see was her new friend waiting for her. The world shifted into slow motion as Emma's tiny frame crossed the safety barrier and entered the K-9 demonstration zone. Every second stretched into an eternity. Every heartbeat thundered like a drum. Every breath caught in throats across Riverside Park, as 300 people watched a potential tragedy unfold before their eyes. Officer's 15 years of training and experience crystallized into a single moment of absolute focus. His mind raced through protocols, procedures, and possibilities at lightning speed. Rex was trained to respond to threats. A small figure running directly at him could trigger defensive instincts. The dog had taken down grown men before. What would happen if those same instincts activated now, with a 3-year-old child as the target? "Rex, stay!" Command cracked through the air like a whip, his voice carrying the full weight of authority and urgency. His muscles tensed as he prepared for the worst-case scenario. His free hand hovered near his belt, ready to physically intervene if necessary. Every fiber of his being focused on the impossible task of protecting both the child sprinting toward them and his loyal partner who might not understand the difference between a threat and an innocent toddler. Rex's body went rigid at the command. His ears shot forward, his dark eyes locked onto the approaching figure. This was exactly what his training had prepared him for: rapid movement, unexpected approach, potential threat assessment. His powerful muscles coiled like springs. 4 years of conditioning told him to evaluate, to respond, to protect his handler at all costs. Emma was now 30 feet away. Her pigtails bounced with each running step. Her yellow sundress fluttered in the hot July breeze. Her light-up sneakers flashed their cheerful pink and purple lights, utterly incongruous with the terror gripping everyone watching. She was completely unaware of the danger, her face radiating pure joy and excitement at the prospect of meeting the beautiful dog ahead of her. 25 feet. Sophia dropped the handle of her baby stroller and broke into a desperate sprint. Began crying in his abandoned stroller, sensing his mother's panic through some primal instinct. Sophia's sandals slapped against the grass as she ran faster than she'd ever run in her life, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "Emma, stop! Come back!" Her voice cracked with raw fear, with the kind of terror only a mother watching her child run toward danger could feel. But Sophia was too far behind. The distance between her and her daughter seemed to stretch like an impossible canyon. She'd been distracted for just 3 seconds, 3 seconds to adjust, and now those 3 seconds might cost her everything. Tears blurred her vision as she ran, her mind flooding with worst-case scenarios she couldn't bear to imagine. 20 feet. The crowd had erupted into chaos. People were shouting warnings, advice, prayers. "Somebody do something," a man yelled. "Call 911, another voice cried out, though what good emergency services could do in the next 5 seconds nobody knew. Parents turned their children away, unable to watch what might happen next. Others stood frozen, their phones out, some recording with shaking hands, unable to look away from the unfolding scene. Jennifer, a 4th-grade teacher from elementary, stood near the front of the crowd with her phone raised. Her finger hovered over the record button, trembling. Years of witnessing playground accidents had taught her to document incidents, but this was different. This was potentially catastrophic, yet some instinct told her to press record. Her phone captured everything. The lens focused on the little girl in yellow, the massive German Shepherd, and the space between them that shrank with each passing millisecond. 15 feet. Officer's mind raced through his options. He could pull Rex back hard on the leash, but a sudden jerk might startle the dog or trigger an unpredictable response. He could step between them, but moving might also trigger Rex's protective instincts. He could issue another command, but Rex was already at maximum alert, and too many commands might confuse rather than control. He was trapped in a nightmare scenario that no amount of training had fully prepared him for. Sweat rolled down his temples, and it wasn't from the July heat. His hand gripped the leather leash so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. He could feel Rex's tension through that leather connection, could sense his partner's confusion at the unusual situation. Rex was a working dog, trained to respond to threats with decisive action. But he was also carefully selected for stable temperament, for the ability to distinguish friend from foe. Which instinct would win? 10 feet. Time seemed to fragment into individual frames, like watching a movie advance one still image at a time. Emma's right foot lifted off the grass. Her left foot came down. Her arms pumped at her sides with the uncoordinated enthusiasm of toddler locomotion. Her smile never wavered, never dimmed. In her 3-year-old mind, she was simply running to make a new friend, to pet a dog, to share love with an animal she found beautiful. She had no concept of danger, no understanding of police K9s or their training, no awareness that the crowd behind her was collectively holding its breath in horror. In Emma's innocent world, all dogs were friends waiting to be made, all animals wanted to be petted and loved. Her parents had taught her to be kind to animals, to approach them gently and with an open heart. And that's exactly what she was doing. 5 feet. Sophia was screaming continuously now, her voice hoarse and desperate. She was still 15 yards behind her daughter, closing the distance but not fast enough, never fast enough. Time had become her enemy, distance her tormentor. She could see everything unfolding but was powerless to stop it. Every mother's worst nightmare materialized in real time before her eyes. The crowd noise reached a crescendo, shouts, gasps, cries of alarm all blending into a wall of sound that seemed to press in from all sides. Someone's phone clattered to the ground. A child started crying. A woman began praying aloud in Spanish. The entire community event had transformed in seconds from a celebration into a crisis. 3 feet. Rex's nose twitched, processing sense at a speed and complexity beyond human comprehension. His training had taught him to identify threats through multiple senses: sight, sound, smell, movement patterns. Everything in his experience told him to assess and react. But something else was happening too, something that went beyond training and conditioning. 2 feet. Officer's heart hammered against his breath caught in his throat. Every muscle in his body was tense to the breaking point, ready to spring into action, though what action could save this situation he couldn't imagine. He'd been in that felt less terrifying than this moment. He'd faced armed criminals with less fear than what gripped him now, because those situations involved trained adults who understood risk. This involved a child, an innocent, trusting, joyful child who knew nothing of danger. 1 foot. Emma came to a stop directly in front of Rex, so close that if the German Shepherd had extended his head forward even slightly, they would have touched. She was dwarfed by the massive dog, the top of her head barely reaching his shoulder even though he was sitting. For a single crystallized moment, the entire park fell absolutely silent. Not a whisper, not a breath. 300 people waited for fate to reveal its hand. Emma tilted her tiny head back, her neck craning to look up at the enormous dog looming over her. Her brown eyes, wide with wonder and excitement, met Rex's dark, intense gaze. There was no fear in those eyes, no hesitation, no doubt, just pure, uncomplicated, innocent joy. And then she spoke. The silence that blanketed Riverside Park was so complete, so absolute, that it felt almost supernatural. 300 hearts stopped beating in unison. 300 pairs of lungs ceased drawing breath. In that suspended moment between catastrophe and miracle, the entire world seemed to pause, waiting for a tiny 3-year-old girl to determine the fate of what happened next. Emma stood inches from Rex's massive form, her head tilted back at an almost impossible angle to meet the German Shepherd's intense gaze. The size difference between them was staggering. The dog's head alone was nearly as large as the little girl's entire torso. One powerful jaw could cause unthinkable damage. One defensive snap could end in tragedy. Officer's hand remained locked on the leash. His entire body coiled like a spring, ready to react in the microsecond if Rex's behavior shifted even slightly. But then Emma spoke, and 2 simple words changed everything. "Hi, friend." Her voice was tiny, sweet, and impossibly pure. It carried the unmistakable tone of genuine affection, the kind of innocent love that only a 3-year-old child could express so completely and without reservation. There was no fear in those words, no hesitation, no understanding that she might be in danger, Just simple, honest, beautiful greeting to what she perceived as a new friend waiting to be made. The words hung in the air for what felt like an eternity. Then something extraordinary happened, something that Officer would later describe as the most shocking moment in his 15-year career. Something that would be analyzed by animal behaviorists, studied by K-9 trainers, and watched by hundreds of millions of people across the globe. Rex's entire demeanor transformed. It wasn't a gradual change. It wasn't a slow transition. It was instantaneous, complete, and utterly unprecedented. The rigid, alert posture that had defined Rex's professional bearing simply melted away. His ears, which had been standing at full attention, rotated backward and softened into a gentle, relaxed position. His intense, focused gaze shifted into something Officer had never seen in 4 years of partnership. His eyes became soft, warm, almost tender. And then Rex's tail began to wag. It started as a small movement, barely perceptible at first, just a slight twitch at the base. But then it grew, picking up momentum and enthusiasm with each passing second. Soon it was a full, vigorous wag that sent ripples through Rex's entire hindquarters. The kind of wag that pet owners recognize instantly as pure, unfiltered happiness. The kind of wag that said, without words, "I love you too." Officer's jaw actually dropped. His grip on the leash loosened in shock. In 4 years of working together through countless demonstrations, hundreds of training sessions, and dozens of real-world operations, he had never, not once, seen Rex wag his tail during an official duty. Rex was always professional, always focused, always on task. The dog simply didn't show emotion during work hours. Until now. Rex lowered his massive head until his nose was level with Emma's face. The little girl giggled, a sound of pure, bubbling joy that seemed to echo across the silent park. She reached out with her small hand, palm open, fingers extended in the universal gesture of greeting and trust. Rex, this 85-pound German Shepherd trained to take down armed criminals, responded by gently nuzzling her tiny hand with his wet nose. The crowd remained frozen, unable to process what they were witnessing. Phones that had been raised to record a potential tragedy now captured something entirely different, something miraculous, something that every expectation and assumption they'd held just moments before. Emma's giggles grew louder and more delighted as Rex continued his gentle investigation, sniffing her hand, her arm, her yellow sundress with its white daisies. His tail maintained its enthusiastic wagging, creating a small breeze that ruffled Emma's pigtails. The transformation was so complete, so total, that the fearsome police dog seemed to have been replaced by an entirely different animal. "Good doggy," Emma cooed, her voice filled with approval and affection. She ran her fingers through Rex's fur, her touch feather-light and gentle, exactly the way her parents had taught her to pet animals. "You're so pretty." And then Emma did something that made every parent in the crowd gasp in renewed fear. She wrapped her tiny arms around Rex's thick, muscular neck and hugged him. Officer's hand instinctively tightened on the leash again, his protective instincts surging. This was the moment where things could still go wrong. Dogs, even well-trained dogs, could become uncomfortable with hugs. It was a human gesture that canines didn't always interpret correctly. A hug could feel like restraint, like being trapped, and could trigger a defensive response even in the gentlest of dogs. But Rex, defying every expectation once again, didn't pull away, didn't stiffen, didn't show even a hint of discomfort or defensive behavior. Instead, he leaned into the embrace, careful not to put too much of his weight against the small child, and released a deep, contented sigh that came from somewhere deep in his chest. His tail continued its joyful wagging, now accompanied by a soft, rhythmic thumping as it hit the ground. Sophia finally reached her daughter, her face streaked with tears, her breath coming in ragged gasps from the combination of sprinting and sheer terror. She skidded to a stop a few feet away, her hands reaching out toward Emma but hesitating, afraid that any sudden movement might disrupt whatever miraculous spell had been cast over the situation. "Emma," Sophia whispered, her voice shaking so badly she could barely form words. "Baby, please, slowly, come to Mama." But Emma, still wrapped around Rex's neck, turned her head to look at her mother with an expression of pure confusion. "Why, Mama? I'm hugging my friend." Her tone suggested she couldn't understand why her mother seemed so upset. This was just a dog. Dogs were for hugging. What was the problem? Officer found his voice, though it came out rough and uncertain. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say. I've never seen him act like this. Never, not with anyone." He stared at his partner as if seeing him for the first time. "Rex doesn't do this. He's a working dog. He maintains professional distance from everyone. This is impossible." But it wasn't impossible. It was happening right in front of everyone's eyes, captured on dozens of phones, witnessed by hundreds of people who would spend the rest of their lives trying to explain to friends and family what they'd seen that day in Riverside Park. Rex carefully, deliberately lowered himself further, going from a sitting position to lying down on the grass. The movement was slow and controlled, executed with the kind of gentle precision that showed an acute awareness of the small child in his vicinity. Once he was fully prone, he rolled slightly onto his side, giving Emma even better access to pet his belly, his chest, his head, whatever she wanted to touch. Emma squealed with delight and plopped down onto the grass beside Rex, her yellow dress spreading around her like sunshine. She ran her hands through his fur, talking to him in the way children talk to animals, a running commentary of observations and compliments. "You're the best doggy in the whole world. You have such soft ears. Do you want to be my friend forever and ever?" Rex's tail continued its steady metronome of happiness, thumping against the grass. His tongue lolled out slightly in what could only be described as a genuine smile. His eyes remained soft and focused entirely on the little girl beside him, as if she were the only thing in the world that mattered in that moment. The crowd, still silent but no longer frozen in terror, began to react. First came whispers, hushed, odd comments exchanged between neighbors. Then someone started clapping. Then another person joined in. Within seconds, the entire gathering erupted into thunderous applause mixed with relieved laughter, and more than a few choked sobs from parents who just witnessed every parental fear transform into something beautiful. Officer slowly lowered himself into a crouch, still holding Rex's leash but now more out of protocol than necessity. He reached out and gently touched his partner's side, feeling the relaxed muscles, the contentment radiating from the animal. "Rex, buddy," he whispered, his own voice thick with emotion. "What just happened?" Jennifer's phone continued recording, capturing every second of the impossible scene. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her fear had transformed into awe. She didn't know it yet, but the video she was recording would be viewed by over 200 million people around the world. She didn't know that this moment would be analyzed by experts, discussed on national television, and remembered as one of the most touching human-animal interactions ever captured on film. All she knew, standing there in Riverside Park on that hot July day, was that she was witnessing something truly magical, something that proved, beyond any doubt, that sometimes the hearts can reach across any divide, can break through any barrier, can transform even the most unlikely situations into moments of profound connection. Emma looked up at Officer and smiled, her face radiant. "Can I keep him, Mr. Police?" Despite everything, the fear, the tension, the impossibility of what had just occurred, Officer laughed. It was a genuine, full-bodied laugh of relief and wonder. "I think he might want to keep you," he replied, looking at Rex with new understanding. "I've never seen him choose anyone before, but I think he just chose you." And Rex, the fearsome K-9 officer who had never broken protocol, who had always maintained his professional bearing, who had been trained to be a tool rather than a pet, simply wagged his tail in complete agreement. For the next 15 minutes, time seemed to exist in a bubble separate from the rest of the world. While the police community day continued around them, other demonstrations, other activities, other families exploring the park. A small circle of grass in the K9 area became its own universe. A universe where a 3-year-old girl and an 85-pound police dog every rule, every expectation, and every assumption about how such an encounter should unfold. Emma had positioned herself cross-legged on the grass beside Rex, her yellow sundress spread around her like petals of a flower. She'd kicked off her light-up sneakers, which lay discarded a few feet away, their LEDs still flashing intermittently. With the unself-conscious comfort of a child who'd known someone her entire life, she leaned against Rex's side, using his massive body as a backrest while she chattered away about everything and nothing. "My name is Emma Maria," she announced to Rex with the serious formality of a toddler making introductions. "I'm 3 years old and my birthday is in December. I have a baby brother named, but he can't play yet because he's too little. Do you have any brothers or sisters? I bet you have lots of friends because you're so nice." Rex lay perfectly still except for his tail, which maintained a steady, gentle wag. His head was raised just enough to keep Emma in his line of sight at all times, his dark eyes tracking her every movement with an attentiveness that went beyond mere observation. It was protective, watchful, the kind of vigilance that spoke of a guardian who'd appointed himself to a sacred duty. Officer sat on the grass nearby, his radio squawking occasionally with traffic from other units at the event, but he'd stopped responding. His supervisor, Sergeant Dale, had approached 10 minutes earlier, drawn by the reports of something incredible happening at the K9 demonstration. Now stood at the edge of the safety barrier, his arms crossed, watching the scene with an expression that cycled between disbelief, confusion, and wonder. Had said when he first arrived, his tone demanding an explanation. "What in God's name is going on here? Is that little girl actually cuddling with Rex?" "Sir," I had struggled to find words. "I honestly don't know how to explain this." She ran up to him, said, "Hi, friend," and he just changed completely. "I've never seen anything like it." Had started to say something about protocol and liability and safety regulations, but the words died in his throat as he watched Rex gently nuzzle Emma's hair when she leaned too far forward and started to tip over. The massive police dog had carefully steadied her with his nose, then resumed his protective watch position. No command given, no training protocol followed, just pure instinct to protect the child beside him. Sophia had finally allowed herself to breathe normally again, though she remained close, sitting on the grass just a few feet from her daughter. She'd retrieved stroller and parked it nearby, her baby son now contentedly watching the scene with wide, curious eyes. Sophia kept her phone out, taking photos and videos, wanting to capture every moment of this impossible encounter. Her hands still trembled slightly with residual adrenaline, but tears of joy had replaced the tears of terror. "Mrs. Officer said gently, I know this must have been terrifying for you. I'm so sorry. If I'd seen her coming sooner." Sophia shook her head, cutting him off. "No, please, don't apologize. I should have been holding her hand. I should have been paying attention." She paused, watching her daughter trace patterns in Rex's fur with her tiny fingers. "But I think something special is happening here. Something I don't fully understand, but something beautiful." The crowd that had initially gathered out of fear had now swelled in size as word spread throughout the park. People abandoned other demonstrations to witness the unprecedented scene. Parents lifted children onto shoulders for better views. Teenagers stopped pretending to be too cool for anything and openly stared in amazement. Elderly couples who'd been sitting under shade trees made their way over, drawn by the stories of what was happening. Jennifer continued recording, though she'd moved through multiple angles, wanting to capture the scene from every perspective. She filmed Emma's face, radiant with joy. She filmed Rex's gentle interactions, each movement deliberate and careful. She filmed Officer's expressions of continued amazement. She filmed the crowd's reactions. Deep in her teacher's heart, she understood she was documenting something that needed to be shared. Something that could teach the world about trust, innocence, and the unexpected connections that could form when fear was replaced by love. Emma had discovered that Rex's ears were particularly soft and fascinating. She gently folded one forward, giggling when it bounced back to its normal position. Rex tolerated this exploration with infinite patience, his tail never stopping its contented rhythm. When Emma accidentally poked him too close to his eye, he simply turned his head slightly to protect his face, but made no sound of complaint or warning. "You know what?" Emma announced to anyone listening. "I think Rex is magic. I think he's a magic dog who protects people and makes them happy. Are you magic, Rex?" As if in answer, Rex lifted his head and carefully, so carefully, licked Emma's cheek. The gesture was so gentle, so precise, that it seemed more like a kiss than anything else. Emma dissolved into peals of delighted laughter, wrapping her arms around Rex's neck once again. Officer felt his throat tighten with emotion. He'd worked with Rex through countless dangerous situations. They'd tracked suspects through dark forests, searched vehicles for hidden drugs, protected crowds at public events. They'd been shot at together, had faced down armed criminals together, had saved lives together. Thought he knew everything about his partner, every signal, every behavior, every response. But this was a side of Rex he'd never imagined existed. Beneath all that training, beneath all that discipline and professional bearing, there had apparently always been this capacity for gentleness, for affection, for connection. It had just been waiting for the right person to unlock it. And that person, impossibly, was a 3-year-old girl in a yellow sundress who'd had the courage and innocence to simply say, "Hi, friend." A man in the crowd called out, "Officer, how long have you been training him to do this?" Looked up and shook his head. "Sir, this isn't training, this is. Honestly, I don't know what this is. In 4 years of working together, Rex has never behaved this way with anyone. Not with me, not with my family, not with other officers. This is completely spontaneous." "It's like she flipped a switch in him," Sergeant observed quietly. "Like she found a part of him that nobody else could reach." "Hi, friend," murmured to himself, repeating Emma's words. 2 simple words and she changed everything. Emma had now begun telling Rex about her favorite television shows, her preschool class, and her best friend who lived next door. Rex listened with apparent interest, his ears rotating toward her voice whenever she spoke, his eyes never leaving her face. When she paused in her monologue to yawn, the excitement and July heat finally catching up with her, Rex shifted his position slightly, creating a more comfortable surface for her to lean against. "I think someone's getting tired," Sophia said gently, recognizing the signs of an impending toddler crash. "Emma, sweetie, we should probably let Officer and Rex get back to their demonstration." "No," Emma's response was immediate and emphatic. "I don't want to leave Rex. He's my friend now." "I know, baby, but—" Mrs. Officer interrupted, an idea forming in his mind. Would Emma like to come back and visit Rex sometime? I mean, with proper arrangements in a controlled setting. I think," he looked at his partner, who was watching Emma with unwavering attention, "I think Rex would really like that." Emma's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really, really truly, I can come back and see Rex again." "Really truly," confirmed, smiling despite his continued confusion about the entire situation. "In fact, why don't you and your mom give me your contact information and we'll set something up? Maybe next week." Sophia looked uncertain, still processing the emotional whiplash of the last half hour. "Are you sure? I mean, is this normal? Is this allowed?" Sergeant stepped forward, his decision made. "Ma'am, nothing about this situation is normal. But I've been a police officer for 23 years, and I've learned that sometimes the most important moments are the ones that don't fit in any training manual. If Officer thinks visits would be appropriate, then we'll make it happen." Emma scrambled to her feet, suddenly energized by this news, and threw her arms around Rex one more time. "Did you hear that, Rex? I'm coming back to see you. We're going to be best friends forever and ever." Rex's tail wagged with such enthusiasm that it kicked up small clouds of dust from the dry grass. He remained in his lying position, but his entire body radiated contentment and something that looked remarkably like happiness. As Sophia gathered Emma's shoes and prepared to leave, as Officer exchanged contact information and made plans for a future visit, as the crowd slowly began to disperse with countless photos and videos in their phones, none of them could have possibly imagined what was about to happen next. Jennifer's video, still recording in her phone, was about to be uploaded to social media, and once it was released into the digital world, nothing would ever be the same again. Not for Emma, not for Rex, not for Officer, and not for the millions of people who were about to watch a 3-year-old girl teach the world about the power of 2 simple words. Hi, friend. The viral phenomenon was just hours away from beginning. Jennifer arrived home that evening around 6:30 p.m., exhausted from the heat and the emotional of the day. She kicked off her sandals, poured herself a glass of iced tea, and settled onto her couch with her phone. The video she'd captured at Riverside Park had been burning a hole in her camera roll all afternoon. She'd watched it at least 20 times, and each viewing brought fresh tears to her eyes. The footage was remarkable, 90 seconds of pure, unfiltered magic. It captured Emma's fearless approach, the crowd's collective gasp, Rex's stunning transformation, and the tender moments that followed. The audio had picked up Emma's sweet voice saying, "Hi, friend," with perfect clarity. You could see the exact moment Rex's demeanor changed, see his tail begin to wag, see the fierce police dog become gentle as a lamb. Jennifer's finger hovered over the share button on Facebook. She typed a caption. "Today at the Cedar Rapids Police Community Day, I witnessed something I'll never forget. A 3-year-old girl approached a police K9, said 2 words, and what happened next restored my faith in the power of innocence and love. This is what our world needs more of. Hi friend, Cedar Rapids, faith in humanity." She pressed post at 6:47 p.m. and set her phone down to make dinner. By 7:30 p.m., when Jennifer checked her phone again, the video had 847 shares and over 2,000 reactions. Her notifications were exploding. Friends were commenting, tagging other friends, sharing to their own timelines. "OMG Jennifer, this is incredible. I'm literally crying. This is the most beautiful thing I've seen all year." By 9:00 p.m., the video had jumped to 15,000 shares. It had broken out beyond Jennifer's immediate social circle and was spreading across Cedar Rapids, then across Iowa. Local residents who'd been at the event were commenting, adding their own perspectives, sharing their own photos and videos from different angles. The Cedar Rapids community Facebook groups were flooded with posts about the encounter. By 11:00 p.m., the video had gone regional. Davenport, Iowa City, people across the state were sharing, commenting, reacting. The share count had climbed to 50,000. Jennifer's phone battery was dying from the constant stream of notifications. She'd had to turn off sound alerts because the pinging had become continuous. At 11:47 p.m., Jennifer's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize with a Chicago area code. "Hello," she answered uncertainly. "Hi, is this Jennifer, the person who posted the video of the little girl and the police dog?" "Yes, that's me. Who's calling?" "My name is Sarah Martinez, and I'm a producer for WGN Morning News in Chicago. Ms., your video is absolutely incredible. We'd love to feature it on our show tomorrow morning and possibly arrange an interview with you, the family, and the police officer if possible. Would you be interested?" Jennifer's hand trembled. WGN was a major news station. This was really happening. Yes, I'd need to talk to the family and the officer. I don't know if they'd want." "We understand completely. Here's my direct number. Please reach out to them tonight if possible. We'd love to run this story for our 7 a.m. broadcast." When Jennifer hung up, she immediately called Officer's office number, which he'd given to several people at the event. She left a voicemail explaining the situation. Then she texted Sophia, whose number she'd gotten when they'd exchanged information about potentially organizing a community education event around the experience. She didn't sleep much that night. Neither did millions of other people who were watching, sharing, and falling in love with a video of a little girl and a police dog. By 2:00 a.m., the video had hit 1 million views. Twitter had picked it up. Instagram was flooded with reposts. TikTok users were stitching it with their reactions, thousands of videos of people crying, laughing, and expressing amazement at what they were witnessing. By 6:00 a.m., when Officer's alarm went off for his morning shift, his phone showed 47 missed calls and over 200 text messages. His personal Facebook page, which he rarely used, had received thousands of friend requests overnight. His direct messages were flooded with interview requests from news outlets he'd only ever seen on television. "Honey," his wife said, staring at her own phone in disbelief, "you need to see this. That video from yesterday. It's everywhere. CNN is talking about it. Good Morning America posted it. It has over 5 million views." Sat up in bed, his mind struggling to process this information. 5 million. That couldn't be right. But when he checked his own social media, when he saw the notifications, when he read the messages from reporters from NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, and dozens of international outlets, reality crashed over him like a tidal wave. The Cedar Rapids Police Department's phone system was completely overwhelmed by 7:30 a.m. The receptionist, Carol Henderson, arrived to find the voicemail box full and calls rolling in faster than she could answer them. Every single one was about the video, interview requests, permission requests to use the footage, questions about Rex, questions about Emma, questions about whether this was staged, whether it was real, whether they could arrange appearances. Chief of Police Robert called an emergency meeting at 8:00 a.m. Officer, Sergeant, and the department's public information officer, Lieutenant Hayes, gathered in the conference room, all of them looking shell-shocked. Chief began, his computer screen showing the video that now had over 10 million views. "We have a situation. And I don't mean a bad situation, I mean a phenomenon. This video has become the #1 trending topic on Twitter worldwide. It's on the front page of, it's been shared by celebrities, athletes, politicians. The mayor's office has called me 3 times this morning. The governor wants to talk to us." Lieutenant Hayes pulled up analytics on her tablet. "Chief, the video is being shared at a rate of approximately 1,000 times per minute. International news outlets from Japan, Brazil, the UK, Australia, and dozens of other countries are requesting interviews. We've had calls from talk shows, Ellen, Jimmy, Good Morning America, Today Show. This isn't just viral. This is historic." Officer sat in stunned silence, trying to reconcile the quiet moment he'd witnessed yesterday with the global phenomenon it had become. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "It was just, she said hi to my dog. That's all that happened." "No," Chief said gently. "What happened was that a little girl reminded the entire world what innocence looks like, what trust looks like, and what can happen when we approach each other, even the things that scare us, with open hearts. In a time when everything feels divided, when people are angry and afraid, when police-community relations are strained in so many places, this video shows something pure and good and possible." Sergeant nodded. "The comment sections are incredible, Chief. People from all political backgrounds, all perspectives, all communities, they're all saying the same thing. This touched them. This gave them hope." Lieutenant Hayes continued scrolling through data. "We're seeing comments in dozens of languages. People are creating artwork inspired by the video. Someone started a hashtag #HiFriend, and it's being used in over 100,000 posts per hour. Fan accounts for Rex and Emma have appeared overnight. There's already merchandise being designed, though we'll need to address the legal and ethical issues around that." Sophia's phone had also exploded overnight. When she woke up at 6:00 a.m. to feed, She found hundreds of messages, missed calls from numbers across the country, and Facebook friend requests from people she'd never met. Her own Facebook post sharing Jennifer's video had been shared 80,000 times. Emma, blissfully unaware of the digital firestorm surrounding her innocent encounter, woke up at her usual 7:30 a.m. and immediately asked, "Mama, when can I see Rex again?" By noon on Monday, less than 24 hours after Jennifer had pressed post, the video had accumulated over 50 million views across all platforms combined. It had been featured on every major news network. Celebrities were posting about it: actors, musicians, athletes, politicians from both sides of the aisle. The video had transcended typical viral content and had become a cultural moment. By Tuesday morning, the count had reached 75 million views. International news coverage was extensive. The BBC had sent a crew to Cedar Rapids. German, French, Japanese, and Spanish news outlets were all covering the story. The video had been translated and subtitled into over 30 languages. By Wednesday, when Officer, Rex, Sophia, and Emma sat down for their first televised interview on Good Morning America, the video had been viewed over 120 million times. The interview itself would be watched by 8 million people live, with clips being shared millions more times afterward. The Cedar Rapids Police Department's social media following had grown from 5,000 to over 500,000 in just 3 days. Their website had crashed twice from traffic. The department had to bring in additional staff just to handle media requests and public inquiries. Emma, who still didn't fully understand what viral meant, became one of the most recognized children in America virtually overnight. Her innocent act of friendship had touched something deep in the collective consciousness, a reminder that beneath all the complexity, politics, and division of modern life, simple human and canine connection still mattered most. And Rex, the serious police K9 who'd spent 4 years maintaining professional discipline, had become an international symbol of the capacity for gentleness that exists even in the most unexpected places. The world had watched a 3-year-old girl say, "Hi, friend," to a police dog, and somehow in that moment, millions of people remembered what it felt like to believe in goodness again. The phenomenon was just beginning. As the video continued its relentless spread across the globe, a different kind of conversation began emerging among experts. Animal behaviorists, veterinary scientists, K9 trainers, child psychologists, and neuroscientists all weighed in on what had actually happened in those remarkable 90 seconds at Riverside Park. The question everyone wanted answered was simple yet profound. How did a 3-year-old girl accomplish what seemed impossible? Dr. Williams, a renowned veterinary behaviorist from University's College of Veterinary Medicine, was one of the first experts to provide analysis. She appeared on CNN 3 days after the video went viral, and her segment would be watched by over 15 million viewers, becoming one of the network's most viewed educational pieces of the year. "What we're witnessing here is a perfect storm of canine behavioral science," Dr. Williams explained, the video playing on a screen behind her. "Rex is a highly trained police dog, yes, but he's also been carefully selected for stable temperament. Police K9s aren't chosen randomly. They go through extensive temperament testing that screens for appropriate aggression, meaning they can be fierce when needed but also have an off switch. What's remarkable here is how quickly Rex identified this situation as non-threatening." The CNN host leaned forward, but how could he know that so instantly? Emma ran straight at him. Dr. Williams smiled. Dogs process information through multiple sensory channels simultaneously. In the seconds before Emma reached Rex, he was already gathering data. Her scent profile would have told him she was a child. Children have distinctly different hormonal signatures than adults. Her body language, though energetic, showed no aggression markers. Her vocal tone was high-pitched and friendly. But most importantly, her emotional state was completely devoid of fear or hostility. "You're saying Rex could smell her emotions?" In a manner of speaking, yes. Dogs can detect chemical changes in human body chemistry associated with emotional states. Emma approached with pure joy and trust, no cortisol spike from fear, no adrenaline from aggression. To Rex's highly trained senses, she wasn't a threat. She was a child expressing unconditional affection. The analysis sparked a cascade of responses from experts worldwide. Dr. James, a K9 training specialist with 30 years of experience, published an article in Police K9 magazine that was shared over 100,000 times. In it, he detailed the specific selection criteria for police dogs that made Rex's response, while unusual, not entirely unpredictable. "We select dogs who can switch between work mode and rest mode," Doctor wrote. "A dog that's always aggressive is dangerous and unusable. A dog that's always friendly can't do the job. The ideal police K9 has what we call appropriate reactivity. They can assess situations and respond accordingly." Rex demonstrated textbook appropriate reactivity. He assessed Emma as non-threatening and responded with gentleness rather than defensiveness. On a popular podcast called The Science of Everything, animal cognition researcher Dr. Sarah from Duke University's Canine Cognition Center offered another perspective that resonated with millions of listeners. "What's fascinating about this encounter is what it reveals about the persistence of natural instincts even after extensive training," Doctor explained. "Rex has been conditioned through thousands of hours of training to behave in specific ways, but underneath that conditioning, he's still a dog with millions of years of evolutionary programming. Dogs evolved alongside humans specifically to read our emotional states and respond to our social cues." Emma's approach triggered something deeper than training. It triggered evolutionary programming that says, "Protect the young." The podcast host asked the question many listeners were thinking. "So you're saying Rex's response was instinctual rather than learned?" "It was both," Doctor clarified. "His training gave him the discipline to remain calm and assess the situation rather than reacting impulsively. But his response, the gentleness, the protectiveness, the obvious affection that came from something more primal. Emma essentially bypassed his professional conditioning and connected directly with his fundamental nature as a social animal evolved to bond with humans." Child psychologist Dr. Michael Torres appeared on Good Morning America alongside Officer and provided insight from the human side of the equation. His segment became one of the show's most shared clips, with over 10 million social media views. Emma's approach was textbook for positive animal interaction, except she didn't learn it from a textbook. It came from pure instinct, Dr. Torres explained. 3-year-olds haven't yet developed the fear conditioning that older children and adults carry. Emma didn't approach Rex thinking, "This is a police dog. This is dangerous. I should be careful." She saw a dog, she felt joy, she acted on that joy. That authenticity, that absolute lack of pretense or ulterior motive, is something animals detect immediately. "Are you saying her innocence protected her?" the host asked. "In a sense, yes. But more accurately, her innocence allowed for genuine connection. She wasn't trying to dominate Rex or control him. She wasn't approaching with agenda or expectation. She simply wanted to say hello to a friend. That purity of intention created a safe space for Rex to respond authentically as well." The scientific discussion expanded into neuroscience when Dr. a researcher specializing in bonding at university, published findings about what likely occurred in both Rex's and Emma's brains during their encounter. Her paper, Neurochemistry of Spontaneous Bonding, Analysis of the Cedar Rapids Incident, became one of the most downloaded scientific papers of the year. What we're likely seeing is a simultaneous oxytocin cascade in both the child and the dog, Doctor explained in interviews about her research. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone. It's released during positive social interactions. When Emma said, "Hi, friend," and Rex responded positively, both of their brains would have flooded with oxytocin, creating a feedback loop. Emma's brain releases oxytocin. Rex detects this through multiple sensory channels, and his brain releases oxytocin, which Emma then detects, reinforcing her own oxytocin response. Within seconds, they've created a neurochemical bond. The research went even deeper. Veterinary neurologist Dr. Robert used the video to teach on canine body language that was attended virtually by over 50,000 people. He broke down Rex's transformation frame by frame, explaining each subtle shift in the dog's demeanor. "Watch his ears here," Doctor pointed out, pausing the video at the moment Emma spoke. "They rotate backward and soften. That's a dog signaling non-aggression and openness. Now watch his eyes, see how the tension around them releases. That's sometimes called soft eyes in training, and it indicates a relaxed, friendly state. His tail begins wagging, but notice it's a full-body wag, not just the tail. His whole hindquarters are moving. That's genuine happiness, not nervous energy. And here, when he lowers himself to the ground, he's making himself less threatening, more approachable. Every single movement is communicating, 'I'm safe, you're safe, we're friends.'" K9 trainers from around the world shared their own experiences in response to the analysis. Officer Martinez from the Seattle Police Department posted a video that received 2 million views showing her police dog, Thor, playing gently with her 3-year-old nephew. "This is exactly what Rex did," she explained. "Working dogs are selected for stable temperaments. My Thor is fierce on the job but gentle as a lamb with children. The public only sees them working, so they assume they're always that way." This video of Rex and Emma shows what we handlers know. These dogs are incredible at code switching between work mode and social mode. A retired K9 handler from Miami, Officer James Wilson, shared a particularly touching story in a Facebook post that was shared over 500,000 times. "I worked with my partner, King, for 8 years. He was an absolute professional, focused, driven, serious. But when my daughter was born, the first time he met her, he did exactly what Rex did. He became a different dog. So gentle, so protective. He slept outside her nursery every night for 5 years. When she learned to walk, he walked beside her like a guardian. Working dogs have hearts, people, big ones. Emma found Rex's heart, and the whole world got to see it." The scientific consensus that emerged from weeks of analysis was surprisingly unified. What happened between Emma and Rex wasn't a fluke or a miracle in the supernatural sense. It was the result of millions of years of coevolution between humans and dogs, combined with careful breeding and training that preserved rather than destroyed a dog's natural ability to form bonds. Emma's innocence and Rex's stable temperament created perfect conditions for genuine connection. But perhaps the most meaningful analysis came from Dr. Allen, a professor of human-animal interaction studies at university, who appeared on 60 Minutes in a segment about the phenomenon. "The reason this video has touched 200 million people isn't just because it's cute or heartwarming," Doctor said. "It's because it demonstrates something we've lost touch with in modern society, the possibility of immediate, genuine connection across divides. Emma didn't see a scary police dog. She saw a friend, and because she approached with that assumption, she made it true. Rex didn't see a potential threat. He saw a child offering love, and because he responded to that truth, he reinforced it. In 90 seconds, they demonstrated what the world desperately needs to remember: that how we approach each other matters, that innocence and trust can transform situations, and that connection is always possible if we're brave enough to say, 'Hi, friend,' to someone who seems different from us." The science had explained the how, but the why this particular moment resonated so deeply with so many people, was perhaps less about neuroscience and more about the human need to believe that genuine goodness still existed in a complicated world. And Emma and Rex had proven, beyond any scientific doubt, that it did. 6 weeks after the video went viral, Cedar Rapids, Iowa had become a different place. The transformation wasn't dramatic or obvious at first glance. The streets looked the same, the buildings hadn't changed, the Mississippi River still flowed through the heart of the city as it always had. But something fundamental had shifted in the relationship between the community and its police department, and that shift was creating ripples that touched every corner of the city. The Cedar Rapids Police Department had experienced what Chief Robert called the Emma effect. Before the viral video, the department received an average of 12 community tip calls per week. In the 6 weeks following the video's release, that number had jumped to over 80 per week. People who had previously been reluctant to engage with police were now actively reaching out, offering information, asking how they could help make their neighborhood safer. "It's remarkable," Chief told the city council during a public meeting that drew 3 times the usual attendance. "We're seeing cooperation from communities that have historically been distrustful of law enforcement. And when we ask what changed, people keep saying the same thing. If Rex can be gentle with that little girl, maybe you guys aren't all bad." One video changed years of perception. Officer had become something of a local celebrity, though he consistently deflected attention to Rex and Emma. He'd been invited to speak at schools, community centers, churches, and civic organizations across the city. At elementary school, where Jennifer taught, he stood before an auditorium of 400 students and their families, Rex sitting calmly beside him in his official K-9 vest. "How many of you were scared of police dogs before you saw the video?" asked the crowd. Nearly every hand went up, including many of the adults. "And how many of you think differently now?" The hands stayed up, but now they were waving enthusiastically, accompanied by excited chatter. A second grader named, his mother had told the boy was named after him following the video, raised his hand with such vigor he nearly fell out of his seat. "Officer, officer, I used to hide behind my mom when I saw police, but now I know you're nice. Can I say hi to Rex?" Smiled. "You can, but remember what we talked about, always ask permission first before approaching a working dog, okay?" He knelt beside Rex. "Rex off duty." He removed the K-9 vest, signaling to Rex that he could relax his professional demeanor. Young approached cautiously, extending his hand just as Emma had done. Rex, with the same gentleness he'd shown that day in the park, nuzzled the boy's palm. The auditorium erupted in applause. These school visits became so popular that the department had to create a waiting list. Within 2 months, and Rex had visited 23 schools, reaching over 8,000 students. The department created a new position, Community K-9 Liaison, specifically to coordinate these appearances. Officer Sarah, who handled a Belgian named Luna, was assigned to the role, and together with Rex, they rebuilt bridges that had been crumbling for years. But the impact extended far beyond school visits. The Cedar Rapids City Council, inspired by the overwhelming positive response, allocated $200,000 in the city budget for a new program called Operation Friendship, named after Emma's simple greeting. The initiative paired police officers with community members for monthly coffee and conversation sessions at local across the city. Mayor attended the first Operation Friendship event at Java House downtown, sitting across from Officer and Rex, while Emma and Sophia sat at the next table with Sergeant. It was packed with residents, media, and curious onlookers. The mayor addressed the crowd with visible emotion in her voice. 3 months ago, if you'd asked me how to improve police-community relations in Cedar Rapids, I would have talked about policy changes, training programs, accountability measures, all important things, Mayor said. But Emma taught us something simpler and more profound. She taught us that connection begins with seeing each other as friends, not adversaries. That's what Operation Friendship is about, creating spaces where we can see each other's humanity. The program became wildly successful. In the first month, over 300 residents participated in coffee sessions with officers. Conversations that started awkwardly, decades of mutual suspicion don't disappear overnight, gradually warmed as people shared stories, asked questions, and found common ground. Officers talked about the challenges of their jobs, the fear they sometimes felt, the reason they'd chosen this career. Residents talked about their experiences, their concerns, their hopes for their neighborhoods. Local businesses embraced the phenomenon with enthusiasm. Java House created a special drink called the Hi Friend, a caramel latte with a paw print design in the foam, with $1 from each sale going to the K9 unit. The drink became the best seller, raising over $15,000 in the first 2 months. Other businesses followed suit. Riverside Park Bakery created Rex's Treats dog biscuits shaped like police badges, sold at cost with all profits going to animal shelters. Emma's Restaurant, no relation to Emma, though the owner loved the coincidence, added an Emma's Special kids menu featuring healthy options, with 10% of proceeds supporting youth programs. The entrepreneurial spirit extended to merchandise. After consulting with the family and ensuring they received appropriate compensation and control over Emma's image, a local artist named David Park created a beautiful illustration of Emma hugging Rex. The image, approved by both families, appeared on T-shirts, coffee mugs, posters, and tote bags. The phrase "Hi, Friend" in Emma's handwriting, traced by her mother, became an iconic symbol across Cedar Rapids. What made this different from typical viral merchandise exploitation was the intention behind it. Every product was created by local small businesses. Every design was approved by the families involved, and significant portions of proceeds went to meaningful causes. K9 units across Iowa, youth education programs, animal welfare organizations, and police community bridge-building initiatives. Within 3 months, these various fundraising efforts had generated over $200,000 for community programs. The Cedar Rapids Community Foundation established the Emma and Rex Friendship Fund, specifically to support initiatives that brought police and community together. The fund received donations from across the country: $5 from a retired teacher in Maine, $100 from a business owner in California, $1,000 from a tech company in Seattle that had seen the video shared among employees. The physical landscape of Cedar Rapids began reflecting the change too. A local muralist, Maria, painted a stunning 40-foot mural on the side of the community center downtown. It depicted Emma reaching up to Rex, their connection rendered in vibrant colors that seemed to glow even on cloudy days. Beneath the image, in letters 3 feet tall, were the words, "Hi, Friend." The mural became an instant landmark, a place where people took photos, where tour groups stopped, where couples got engaged and families took holiday cards photos. At the 6-week anniversary of the viral video, the Cedar Rapids Police Department hosted a Community Appreciation Day at Riverside Park, on the exact spot where Emma had met Rex. Over 2,000 people attended. Emma arrived in a patrol car at her delighted insistence, wearing a child-sized police vest that the department had custom-made for her. Rex, recognizing her the moment she stepped out of the car, broke his professional composure again, his tail wagging furiously as Emma ran to greet him. "Hi, Friend," she called out, just as she had that first day. The crowd, recognizing the echo of the moment that had changed everything, erupted in cheers. Many people were openly crying, moved by the simple beauty of a friendship that had taught an entire community how to see each other differently. Sophia, who had initially been overwhelmed by the attention, had found her voice as an advocate for positive change. She spoke at the event, her words measured and thoughtful. "My daughter didn't set out to change the world that day. She just wanted to pet a dog, but her innocence reminded us all of something we'd forgotten, that most people, most situations, most encounters don't have to be scary or confrontational. If we approach each other with open hearts, if we're willing to say, 'Hi, Friend,' instead of assuming the worst, we might be surprised by what's possible." The statistics told a compelling story. Crime tips to the police department had increased by 156%. Complaints against officers had decreased by 34%. Community event attendance had tripled. Most remarkably, Cedar Rapids had seen a 12% decrease in minor crimes, vandalism, theft, disturbances, which sociologists attributed to improved community cohesion and the collective investment in making the city better. Officer stood on the stage at the Community Appreciation Day, Rex beside him, looking out at the sea of faces, diverse in age, race, background, but unified in their presence at this celebration. He thought about how a single moment, 90 seconds of unexpected connection, had catalyzed change that policies and programs had struggled to achieve for years. "I've been a police officer for 16 years, told the crowd, his voice thick with emotion. "I've done this job because I believe in serving my community, but I'll be honest, sometimes that belief got tested. Sometimes the divide between us and you felt too wide to cross." And then Emma ran up to Rex, said 2 words, and showed us it was never about crossing a divide. It was about realizing there never needed to be one in the first place. As the sun set over Riverside Park that evening, as families packed up their picnic blankets and children chased each other across the grass where Emma and Rex had first met, something had unmistakably changed in Cedar Rapids. The video that had gone viral around the world had done more than entertain millions. It had transformed a community, one friendship at a time. And it all started with a 3-year-old girl who was brave enough to say, "Hi, friend." 1 year after that fateful July day in Riverside Park, Emma woke up on her 4th birthday to find a special surprise waiting in her living room. Sitting on the coffee table was a beautifully wrapped present with a card that read, "To Emma, from your friend Rex." Inside was a custom-made leather collar with Emma's name embroidered on it, and a handwritten note from Officer. "Rex picked this out himself. He wanted you to have something special for your birthday. See you at 2 p.m. Emma squealed with delight, clutching the collar to her chest. "Mama, Daddy, Rex remembered my birthday." In truth, Officer had organized the gift, but in Emma's 4-year-old heart, she knew with absolute certainty that Rex had chosen it just for her. And in a way, she wasn't wrong, had noticed Rex's particular attention to a display of colorful collars during a pet store visit, and he'd taken it as a sign. By 1:45 p.m., the backyard was filled with 20 children from Emma's preschool class, parents standing in clusters with plastic cups of lemonade, and decorations featuring butterflies and flowers, Emma's current obsessions. But everyone knew the real guest of honor wasn't Emma. It was the special visitor scheduled to arrive at 2 p.m. At precisely 2 o'clock, a Cedar Rapids police patrol car pulled up in front of the home. Officer stepped out, opened the back door, and Rex emerged wearing a special vest that read "Off-Duty Party Dog" in cheerful letters. The children in the backyard heard the commotion out front and stampeded toward the side gate, Emma leading the charge. "Rex," Emma's voice carried such pure joy that several parents felt tears spring to their eyes. She ran full speed toward the massive German Shepherd, her birthday dress, yellow with white daisies, deliberately chosen to match the dress she'd worn that first day, flowing behind her like sunshine. Rex's transformation was instantaneous and total. The moment he saw Emma, his tail began its familiar enthusiastic wag. His ears softened. His eyes lit up with unmistakable recognition and affection. When Emma reached him, she threw her arms around his neck with the comfortable familiarity of old friends, and Rex responded by gently licking her cheek, making her dissolve into giggles. "Hi, friend," Emma whispered into Rex's fur, and though only a few people standing nearby heard it, the words sent ripples of emotion through everyone who did. It was the phrase that had started everything, and hearing it again in this intimate moment felt sacred somehow. Officer had arranged for Rex to spend 2 full hours at the party, an unprecedented break from protocol that Chief had personally approved. "That dog has done more for community relations than any program we've ever run," the chief had said. "If he wants to attend a birthday party, he's attending a birthday party." The children, who'd all been coached by their parents about proper behavior around dogs, approached Rex with a mixture of excitement and respect. They'd all seen the video. It had been shown in their preschool class as part of a lesson on kindness and gentleness with animals. Now they got to meet the famous Rex themselves. 4-year-old Emma's best friend nervously extended her hand. "Hi, Rex. I'm Emma's friend, so I hope we can be friends too." Rex sniffed her hand gently, then nuzzled it with his nose. His face broke into a radiant smile. "He likes me." One by one, each child got their moment with Rex. Officer supervised carefully, ensuring Rex never became overwhelmed, watching for any signs of stress or discomfort. But Rex seemed to relish the attention, his tail maintaining its happy rhythm, his demeanor patient and gentle with each small human who approached him. The birthday cake was shaped like a police badge with Emma's 4th birthday written across it, and beside it sat a smaller dog-friendly cake made of peanut butter and banana, Rex's special treat. When everyone sang "Happy Birthday," Rex lifted his head and howled along, sending the children into delighted chaos. It was a sound Officer had never heard from Rex before, and he found himself laughing so hard his sides hurt. As the party wound down and parents began collecting their sugar-high children, Emma sat on the grass with Rex, her small body leaned against his large frame, both of them contentedly watching the adults clean up. Officer sat down beside them, his heart full in a way he couldn't quite articulate. "Officer," Emma said seriously, looking up at him with those wide brown eyes, "when I grow up, I'm going to be a police officer just like you, and I'm going to have a dog partner just like Rex." Felt his throat tighten. "I think you'd make an excellent police officer, Emma. And Rex can teach my dog how to be good and brave and gentle," she continued, her 4-year-old logic unassailable in its innocence. "I'm sure he would be honored," replied, running his hand over Rex's head. The dog's eyes were half closed in contentment, completely relaxed in a way that still amazed his handler even after a year of witnessing this special relationship. Sophia approached with her camera, capturing the scene, her daughter, the police officer, and the dog who'd become family in the most unexpected way. "Officer, I can never thank you enough for what you've done for Emma, for what Rex has done. She talks about him every single day." "Mrs., I think Emma and Rex did something for all of us," replied. "They reminded us what matters most." The months that followed Emma's 4th birthday brought continued evolution to the story that had captivated the world. The original video, which had been viewed over 250 million times across all platforms, still resurfaced periodically, especially during difficult news cycles. Whenever the world felt heavy with division and conflict, someone would share the video again with comments like, "We need more of this," or "Remember when this restored our faith in humanity." Officer and Rex continued their community outreach work, which had expanded beyond Cedar Rapids. They traveled to Chicago and even Washington, D.C., where they'd been honored at a national police convention for their role in improving police-community relations. But their favorite visits remained the monthly meetups with Emma at Riverside Park, where they'd first met. These visits had become something of a local tradition. The first Saturday of every month at 10 a.m., weather permitting, Emma and Rex would meet at their spot, the exact location where she'd first approached him. Other families from the community began joining, turning it into an informal gathering where children could interact with Rex and other K-9 officers in a safe, supervised environment. The High Friend Saturdays, as they became known, regularly drew 5,100 families. When Emma started kindergarten that fall, she brought a framed photo of herself with Rex for show and tell. Her teacher, Ms. Martinez, later told Sophia that Emma's presentation about friendship, bravery, and kindness had been the most impactful lesson of the entire semester. She talked about how being scared is okay, but that sometimes the things that seem scary turn out to be the best friends you'll ever have, Ms. Martinez recounted. There wasn't a dry eye in the classroom. The bond between Emma and Rex became the subject of a children's book written by Jennifer, the teacher who'd recorded the original video. Titled Hi, Friend, The True Story of Emma and Rex, the book featured beautiful illustrations by local artist David Park and became a bestseller in the children's literature category. All proceeds went to the Emma and Rex Friendship Fund, which by the end of the year had distributed over $500,000 to programs supporting police community relations and animal welfare across Iowa. As Rex approached his 8th birthday, the typical retirement age for police K-9s, Officer began facing a decision that filled him with complex emotions. Rex had given 6 years of exemplary service to the Cedar Rapids Police Department. He'd made dozens of arrests, located missing persons, saved lives, and most recently, transformed community relations in ways that would impact the city for generations. But police dogs don't retire to just anywhere. Handlers have first right of adoption and had always planned to bring Rex home. However, there was another family who loved Rex deeply, who'd been part of his life for over a year, whose youngest member had a bond with him that explanation. On a crisp October morning, Officer invited the family to the police station for what he described as an important conversation. Emma, now a confident 5-year-old, skipped into Chief's office holding her mother's hand, wondering why Rex's boss wanted to see her. Chief smiled warmly at the family. "Emma, do you know what retirement means?" Emma scrunched up her face, thinking hard. "It's when you're done with work and you get to rest." "That's exactly right," confirmed. "Well, Rex is going to retire soon. He's been a police dog for a long time and now he gets to rest and play and just be a regular dog." Emma's eyes went wide. But where will he live?" Officer knelt down to Emma's level. "That's what we wanted to talk to you about. Rex needs a home where he'll be loved and taken care of, and I can't think of anyone who loves Rex more than you do." Emma looked confused. "But you love Rex, you're his best friend." "I do love him, sweetheart, but here's what I was thinking. What if Rex came to live with your family? That way he could see you every day, and I could visit him all the time so I'd still be his friend too. What do you think about that?" The 5-year-old's face cycled through confusion, understanding, hope, and then explosive joy in the span of 3 seconds. "Rex could live with us." She turned to her parents, bouncing on her toes. "Mama, Daddy, can he? Please, please, please." Sophia and Carlos exchanged glances heavy with emotion. They discussed this possibility privately over the past month, but hearing it offered to their daughter made it real. Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes, baby. If Officer thinks it's the right thing, then yes. Rex can come live with us." Emma launched herself at Officer, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. I promise I'll take such good care of him. I'll feed him and walk him and tell him every day that he's the best dog in the whole world." 3 weeks later, on a Saturday morning that felt thick with significance, Rex officially retired from the Cedar Rapids Police Department. There was a ceremony at the police station where Rex received a special retirement medal, where gave a speech that he could barely get through without his voice breaking, where Emma stood beside Rex with her hand resting on his head the entire time, as if afraid he might disappear if she let go. That afternoon, Rex went home with the family. He explored his new house with thorough curiosity, approved of his new bed, oversized and plush, positioned in Emma's room where she'd insisted it had to go, and settled in with the ease of someone who'd finally arrived exactly where he belonged. Emma, true to her promise, took her responsibilities seriously. She helped fill his water bowl every morning, assisted her parents with measuring his food, and spent hours sitting with him reading her kindergarten books aloud while Rex listened with patient attention. The years that followed brought changes and growth, but some things remained constant. Emma grew from a kindergartner into a bright, compassionate young girl whose bedroom wall was covered with photos of her and Rex. Rex aged gracefully, his muzzle growing gray, his movements becoming slower but no less dignified. An officer visited at least twice a week, often timing his visits for dinner so he could see his old partner in the home where he'd found peace. On the 5th anniversary of the viral video, which continued to accumulate views and resurface during every news cycle that felt particularly heavy, a news crew returned to Cedar Rapids to do a "Where Are They Now" story. They found Emma, now 8 years old in her backyard playing fetch with an elderly but still spirited Rex. When asked what that first meeting had meant to her, Emma, older now but with the same pure heart, thought carefully before answering. "I think I just knew he was good," she said simply. "Sometimes you meet someone and you just know they're going to be important. Rex taught me that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means saying, 'Hi, friend,' even when your mama is yelling at you to stop." She grinned mischievously at that last part, and Sophia laughed from where she stood watching. The news segment ended with footage of Emma and Rex, gray-muzzled but content, lying together in the grass of Riverside Park at their spot, where a small plaque had been installed reading, "Here on July 15th, 2 words changed everything. Hi, friend. Emma and Rex." Officer, now promoted to K-9 unit supervisor, stood nearby watching them. He thought about that day 5 years ago when he'd been terrified. A tragedy was about to unfold. He thought about how impossible it had seemed that a 3-year-old could reach through years of training to find the heart of a police dog. He thought about how wrong he'd been to ever doubt that love and innocence could accomplish what force and fear never could. Rex lifted his graying head and looked at, and for just a moment the handler could swear his old partner was smiling. Emma curled closer to Rex, resting her head on his side, and whispered the words that had become a promise, a greeting and a reminder all at once. "Hi, friend." The sun set over Cedar Rapids that evening, casting golden light across a city that had been transformed by 2 words, a viral video, and the enduring bond between a little girl and a dog who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. The video that had been watched by hundreds of millions continued to circulate, continuing to remind people across the world that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is approach what scares you with an open heart and a simple greeting. Sometimes all it takes to change the world is 2 words, "Hi, friend." And sometimes those 2 words are enough to last forever.